Let's begin then. And before we do so, let us all take a moment to remind ourselves how extremely fortunate we are to be disciples of the Buddha, to have taken this leap of faith and gone forward and gone forth to reap the fruits of the sasana, to free ourselves from suffering, achieve our liberation. None of this would be possible if not for that one man who ventured this journey all by himself with no teacher, no guide, no guidebook, no instructions to follow, no right turn, wrong turn, no signposts, nothing. Just by the sheer power of his merits, accrued over an infinite number of rebirths, time spent in samsara, sacrificing his leg and limb, eyes, ears, and the entirety of his body, giving up his heart, giving up his blood, sweat and tears on behalf of not just humanity but all sentient beings, because he had one resolve in mind, and that was to free himself as well as all sentient beings from suffering. Today we celebrate that, having achieved that victory all by himself. Today we enjoy the fruits of his labor, reminding ourselves of all that, and with gratitude in abundance in our hearts, let us take a moment to pay homage to the infinitely virtuous one, he whose compassion is unparalleled, he whose wisdom is infinite, he whose loving kindness is beyond measure. To his holy name we make this veneration, and let us also take this pledge that for as long as we are alive, for as long as our hearts beat, for as long as there's breath left in our bodies, we will strive, we will make effort, and we will endure to achieve the gift that he so wanted all of us to do. Let us take a moment to do that now. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. It is very satisfying to see that it was all worth it. Because when we first took this step in this direction, we just had this intuition that we were doing the right thing. It was almost like an instinct. Yes, we had the Dhamma. The Dhamma had already become our refuge. We realized that there was no point in an existence in which we had not committed ourselves and devoted ourselves to the Noble Triple Gem. That much was clear. But then our vision was like none other. We didn't want to do what everybody was doing, because we looked around, we studied, we looked at what was going on out there. And although there were things that were done very well, there were things that were done not so well. So we wanted to create our own thing. It was not really our own thing, but we envisaged if the Buddha had been alive today, how would he might have approached in today's day and age with the challenges and adversities that people have in the 21st century, with the problems that young men have to face today, and young women, children, the elderly, adults, all of them. What sort of problems do they have? What are the obstacles that are in their way that stop them from achieving this salvation when we call ourselves Buddhists and we pride ourselves in being in the land of the Buddha? How do we bring the Buddha to the people? This was a question we had. Because the Buddha had come to us. So it was our turn to introduce the Buddha to many others. So in some senses it was a bit of a gamble. We didn't know what we were doing really. But we had that intuition and we had a good will. We had both intuition and good intention. So some of you may know some of these stories, others may not. Because it is a journey that we have taken over not just the last 5 or 6 years that you've seen the monastery come up, but many years before that. This was all in the making. Piece by piece, first the idea started coming together on paper. A lot of people got around. Not everyone came along, but some were there at the beginning, and then some were there through the middle, and some will be there at the end. That's always the way it is. Not everyone who jumps on board at the beginning is left at the end. Some just parachute their way down. So we just think when we see such sort of thing happen, we must have done the same in previous ministries of the Buddha Sasana. So perhaps it was not our time then, in the Kakusanda Buddha Tathagatan Vanse's time. Maybe it was not our time in the Kashyapa Buddha's time. Maybe we'd done the same. But this time round we feel confident that we are in it to win it. So there are those who came along, but then somewhere down the line they thought this was not for them. But they paved the path for many. And we must be grateful to all of them. When this was just a plan on a piece of paper, when, as I say, a monastery looked something like this. This was the Dhamma hall. This was the Dana hall. These were the washrooms. Gents, ladies. This is where the monks were to be. And this is where the men in Vanses were supposed to be. This is naive plan number 1. That soon got scrapped. Because I don't think we were grounded in reality when we were toying with some of these ideas. But there was always good intention. That there was always there. Without a shadow of a doubt, I can tell you that. That there was always there. How can we do good to people? That is why I'm saying, it's very satisfying to see all of you like this. The fewer devotees there are here, the happier I am. So if you're a devotee, don't come back again. Is that what I'm saying? I'm saying don't come back as a devotee. Do whatever you can to come into the family. We are all encompassing. We like to be inclusive, not exclusive, because we want to give the gift of Dhamma to everybody. The sasana is what everyone deserves, not just one man or woman, not just myself, not just Guru Handru. Every man and woman and child deserves the Buddha sasana, because After all, ladies and gentlemen, that is what you seek, although you don't know it. You don't know that it is the Buddha Sasana you've been seeking all your lives until you found it. Then you realize, this is what I was looking for. If I had $1 for every time people listen to the Dhamma sermons and then they come back and tell me, Swami Nasa, this is what I was looking for. Huh? Isn't that the story that you all had to say? I was doing this, I was doing that, going to meditation classes, going to Abhidhamma classes, listening on the channels on the internet, and then one fine day I heard this voice. And they said, Guru Thero, Guru Handru. Right? I heard that voice and I realized in that moment, that is what I was looking for. This just goes to prove the point. We are all looking for the same thing. So why aren't the rest of them here? They haven't heard that voice yet. That's why. Because that is what they're looking for. Even this ant that's on this desk, so you can't see from there, but I can. It is also looking for that voice. Unfortunately, although it can hear the voice, it doesn't know it's a voice. It just thinks it's a noise, not a voice. Because it doesn't have the intelligence to interpret these noises into voices and then make sense of them. If it did, believe you me, this place would be infested by rodents, ants, and all sorts of beasts. But we're doing a sermon here and the dogs are running around. They're not in here. But this is what they're looking for. When you and I were there as four-legged beasts, this is still what we were looking for. But we just didn't have the merit, we didn't have the potential to turn those noises into voices. Today, you're capable of that. It truly is satisfying to see the transformation the sasana has had on all your lives. And you must all rejoice in that. Look at where you were, look at where you are now. Oftentimes, we talk to you about Swami Nuhanses and the things they do, Anagarika Mahatyas, Anagarika Mahatmyas, and so on. Right? Lately I got this letter. It's not really a letter, but I wanted to just get an idea about some of the things that some of our Sila Shravikas do. Because I see them running around, no, not like headless chicken, but they're very busy. Busy doing what? Is a very valid question, isn't it? Because everyone's busy. Even this ant is busy. It's trying to find something for itself. Before the Buddha Sasana came into your lives, you were just as busy. There's no difference about, there. But you were busy doing what? Everybody's busy. Busybodies everywhere. But it's not a busybody that gets anywhere. Because the difference between how you were busy back then and busy now, ladies and gentlemen, is because back then you were busy to sustain yourself, to preserve yourself, to do things for yourself. That is why you always had to keep doing them. Because no one else is going to do it for you. If you want to fend for yourself, if you want to provide for yourself, then even God is not on your side. If you want to do for yourself, then God says, out of paradise. Go sort yourself out. That's how the two of them got kicked out. Because they wanted to fend for themselves. But when they were subservient, when they had surrendered entirely to God, and God said, I will provide everything for you. You don't have to go begging, you don't have to go borrowing, you don't have to go stealing. Right? I will give you everything. But that was not enough for them. They wanted to provide for themselves. And look what happened. The original sin. Yes, it is true. That is the original sin. The sin at the root of all things is what? The need for self-preservation. It is the original sin. Everything else is an extension of that sin. Greed is an extension of that. Fear is an extension of that. Adultery is an extension of that. The original sin is his need to fend for oneself, is to look after yourself. But that is what you were doing before the Buddha Sasana came into your lives. That is what we were all doing. Ask me why I wanted to make a lot of money. Many years ago, that was because I wanted to be successful, I wanted to be rich, so that I could have claim to fame. I could tell people how successful and rich and wealthy I was and make a name for myself. See, who was the richest man in the Buddha's time? Who was the richest man in Jesus' time? Who was the richest man in Prophet Muhammad's time? You don't know, do you? Exactly. What's the point of being rich then? They don't even remember your name after a while. But the Buddha didn't have a penny to his name, and neither did Jesus. And the Prophet had not a dime to his name, but to this day, we talk about them. Because none of them did for themselves. You're only remembered by the service you render to others. Live, this is like a mantra. Live by this, I tell you. I invite you, live by this. Live for others. On any occasion where you have to make a choice, and you are torn between these choices. Do I do for myself or do I do for others? If I do for others, then I'm going to have to sacrifice something that is dear to me, near to me, makes me happy, whatever, right? But if I choose to do what I want to do for myself, then someone else will have to let go of something. They will have to get the short end of the stick. In those situations, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, choose service to others. That is what will always remain with you. Today we talk about Kakusan, the Buddha, but who was the richest man in his time? Nobody knows. From time to time, they said Steve Jobs was the richest man in the world. Then they had Bill Gates, they said was the richest man in the world. Now perhaps maybe Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, right? Sometimes they'll say Mark Zuckerberg is the richest man in the world. From time to time, these people, they come and go, right? But the Buddhas, their names remain. Jesus will always be Jesus. They'll always know him for that, for who he was to others. Mahatma Gandhi will always be known for who he was to others. But he only became popular. He only left a legacy once he became Mahatma. Before that, he was just a normal person who had a wife, had a family, and he provided for his family. But at some point he realized, I have a bigger family than this. This is not my family. My family is every man, woman, and child who walk the surface of this land. So he fought for that. He fought in the way that he knew. So when I asked for some of the things our Srila Shravika Mahatmas get up to, I got a list, a long list. That's a long list, isn't it? I'll read to you a couple of things on here. At the same time, what I want you to reflect on is, it seems like they're pretty busy. So no change there. Giving up your lay life and coming into the life of a Srila Shravika, not much has changed in terms of how busy you are. What matters is not that. What matters is busy doing what? Let me give you one example. It says cleaning and washing the toilets is one of the things that they are busy doing. Don't you think they used to do that before they became Sri Shravikas? Cleaning and washing toilets? No? Sri Shravikas? I asked you. Did you not clean and wash toilets? Yeah, of course you did. Which one? That one. Did you ever get, even a word of praise for that? Were those actions sublime enough that a member of the Mahasangha would appreciate you for that? You cleaned and washed toilets for how many years of your life? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Your hair went grey washing toilets, right? Your back started to hurt washing and cleaning toilets. Your old limbs have become brittle washing and cleaning toilets. The same old toilet, over and over and over again. You kept washing it. Maybe on your birthday you got a birthday card. Perhaps on Mother's Day you maybe got some flowers. That was it. You were only appreciated by 1 or 2 people at home. That's it. Did your visitors appreciate you? They came, they visited you and they walked into the washroom and said, it's very nice. Who's the person who cleans and washes these toilets? I want to speak to her. I want to speak to her manager as well. Did you get a single word of praise? Any credit for it? Any honor for it? No. Do you think you'll be remembered for having washed your toilet at home? Do you think you'll be remembered for that? Of course not. But this sermon will go online now. And it'll be there for time eternal. You will be remembered forever. Because you have not just washed any old toilet. You have washed toilets. You have labored. You have shed sweat and tears on behalf of others. Not just the people that by law you are supposed to call your family. Not just them. Not just by convention the people you are supposed to call your family. But far beyond that. Everyone who seeks refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. You wash and clean the toilets for them. So that when they come in and they wish to listen to the Dhamma and free themselves from the burdens that bother them, they are able to do that comfortably. You go that extra mile. You make that effort. You take on that effort so that others can do it effortlessly. You will be remembered forever. Cooking in the kitchen. Let's talk about that one. How much cooking have you done by now? So much Swaminas, I have not had the time to do anything else. Wake up, morning tea, you have to do that. Breakfast, you have to do that. Lunch, you have to do that. Evening meal, you have to do that. And then there's something for a small bite, a snack before bedtime. You have to do that. How many meals have you cooked by now? What recognition did you get for that? I know, as a mother, as a wife, you probably don't do it for recognition, but I don't know. You can say so. But, if you don't get a word's appreciation, sometimes, if you don't at least get a thank you, you know how that would have made you feel. Think about why they have this thing called a Mother's Day. It's a real joke if you ask me. Because mothers never get appreciated. So they have to put a day in the year so that Mother's Day, mothers are recognized. We don't celebrate Mother's Day. Yeah, because every day is a Mother's Day. We always talk about mothers. We always love our mothers. We always love not just our mothers, not my mother. Anyone who wishes to be a mother to anybody, we celebrate them. We honor them. Motherhood is what we celebrate. Not my mother or your mother. Motherhood. Father's Day. There's a day in the calendar on which you are supposed to go and say thank you to your father. It's like these appointments, like you forget things, so therefore you make appointments. Now you have a diary, you write down things because you forget, right? So in the same manner, people forget what their fathers do for them. They forget what their mothers do for them. They forget what their teachers do for them. So therefore there's a day in the calendar. I mean, it's fine, at least that way it gets done. But do you put an appointment in the calendar to have lunch? Do you? No, because that need is always there. Do you put an appointment in the calendar to do the things you like? No, you don't need that because that desire is always there. But the things that you don't like, the things that you don't feel are important, you have to put appointments in your calendars. So then think about why a Mother's Day, a Father's Day, a Teacher's Day is in the calendar. For us, every day is a Teacher's Day. We're always going on about teachers. We're always going on about our mothers and fathers and how much they have done for us and how much they are still doing for us. So I ask you again, how much cooking have you done by this point? These Anagarika Mahatmyas, they were going to do that for the rest of their lives. For the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, they were going to just keep on cooking. Breakfast, lunch and dinner. BLD, that's it. Breakfast, lunch and dinner. That was going to be the story of their lives. It's not about what you do. It's why you do it. Today also they do this. So our Srila Radhavika Mahatmyas, they help out in the kitchen. They perhaps make gilampasa, they may make tea, sometimes help out with making whatever, at the monastery. In fact, I don't know some of the things that they do. That's why I had to get a list of what are some of these things that our Srila Radhavika Mahatmyas do. Because they don't do things and then they go around saying, I do this, Can I have a pay rise, please? When do I get my promotion? When do I get my paycheck? Can I get a pat on the back, please? Because I've done this, that and the other. That is what you used to do. That's why they don't do it now. Doing things for honor, doing things for credit, doing things for acknowledgement. But now they do things because they acknowledge others. They honor others. There are people who've come to the monastery, they wish to listen to the Dhamma, they must be hungry. So we acknowledge them. Let's give them a meal. Let's give them some tea. Let's give them a biscuit. Let's help them make themselves comfortable. Let's ensure the washrooms are cleaned so that when they get here, they can be in comfort, be at ease. All of this change has happened because the sasana has touched your lives. Today you don't think, you hardly think at all about yourselves. That is the practice that we are about, isn't it? The more you think about yourselves, the less the sasana has entered your lives. The less you think about yourselves, because you begin to understand that this self is purely a perception. It's not a real thing. It's only a perception in the mind. So once you recognize that, then, it's like a ghost. If no one else sees it, and only you see it, right? Then you understand that this is a ghost. So I shouldn't be bothered by it. There's something wrong with me, and that is why I see this ghost, when nobody else does. This self that you experience, do you think anyone else sees it? You see your hand, everybody else sees that hand. But when you experience this self, when you perceive this self, does anyone else perceive that? Do they? No. I'll prove it to you. Think about your favorite item of food. Let's think about it for a second. If you still have one. Now ask the person sat next to you what it is that you thought. Do you think they're going to be able to answer that? Can they answer this question? No, they can't answer this question because it is only yourself who knows this. And that is purely a perception. That's why nobody else will see it. But hold something in your hand and ask the person sat next to you, do you see this? And they'll say, yes, I see it. Because this is real. But your perception of self, or the self itself, is a fake. It's a fake creation of the mind. It's not real. That's why this lie is only real to you. That's why nobody else sees this. It's not just because they can't read your mind. It's because this sense of self only you perceive. Now, each man, woman and child in this room, every human being here will perceive a self. But that self that you perceive, to you it's unique, isn't it? Nobody else will perceive that. Not in the way that you do. Because if they did, then what you're perceiving is not a self at all. Because this self should be unique. It's an identity. It is your identity. If someone else could perceive it the same way, then that doesn't be, it's by virtue of that, it's not your identity. It's all fake. So the less you have to think about that, the more you can commit yourself and devote yourself in the service of others. Cleaning the monastery premises. Oftentimes I see them with these brooms sweeping the roads and cleaning up for Saturday, particularly for Saturday, every Friday evening before they head home. With brooms and ankle brooms, they sweep the whole road up there. So that when people come in the following morning, they can walk in and they can be pleasantly impressed. No dust, dirt on the ground. All this because when it's a mind that is rejoicing, it's a mind that is happy, that is in a pleasant state, that can then be fed with the Dhamma. So there's a purpose behind all this. It's not just because we want to have a clean monastery. I mean, that's good, right? But there are lots of clean monasteries out there. Pretty much every monastery must be a clean monastery. But that's not the reason we do this. Like when you cleaned your house back then, right? You did so that when people would come in, they would be impressed by you as maybe the person, the housewife, right? Or the people at home, they'd be impressed by that. You like to be house proud, right? When people come home, they see what you've done, right? And you've done your upholstery, you've done your curtains, it's matching colors, and the house is clean, nice, tidy, right? You expect that when they see me, when they see the house, they'll know that I've been a good wife, right? and even if they don't appreciate it verbally, they'll still think that I'm a good housewife. I'm a good mother. I'm a good wife. Look the way I keep my house clean and tidy. There's a need for an acknowledgement there. We spoke about this a few weeks ago. That's why I say, it's not what you do that has changed, ladies and gentlemen. It's the purpose you do it that has changed. And in that purpose, that change of purpose, everything has changed. Entirely. Everything has changed. Because volition is everything. The purpose you do it, the reason you do something, is the most important thing. It's more important than what you do. Why you do is far more important. Helping out with decorations. So all this in the Dhamma hall, preparing for the following day's program. Yesterday afternoon, just randomly I came down for a visit just to see what was going on. Sometimes this monastery is too large, I don't know what's happening on the other end. Far too many things going on to keep track of everything. So from time to time you got to take a tour. In a few days' time I need a small minibus or something. And so I could see how Srila Shavika Mahatmyas and Srila Vesi Mahatmyas preparing for the sermon. There were some Anagarika Mahatmyas as well. Each one being an example to the other. That's what's great about this place. Everybody's an example to another. So it's not like, Sila Shravika Mahatmyas are better or worse than Sila Vyasi Mahatmyas, or the Anagarika Mahatmyas are better or worse than anybody else. It's not like that. Everyone is single-purposely doing the best they can for their salvation. Therefore, when you put that intention on the scale, everyone weighs the same. One person may be able to commit their whole life. Others may be a week, but not a weekend. Maybe there are others who can only do 2 days a week. If that is the best they can do, then they do that. So when a man who gives his house and his land, say 100 acres of it, right? They give it freely to some for charity. Then there's a child who has a chocolate in his hand. Toing and froing, he considers, do I give it, don't I give it? If I give this, then I won't have another for myself. But in the end, he gives it. Who do you think has given more? Who do you think has given less? Less and more is not in the size of what has been given, is it? It's what you have given up, not given to. Because when you give to, there's a person giving, there's a person receiving, and there's an object that is being given. I give this to you. But when you give up, there doesn't have to be a recipient. Matters not what the object is, how big or small it is, what value it has, economic value, matters not. In that way, they're all the same. That is why I say, such a tremendous change that has happened in people's lives, all because the sasana has entered your lives. And the Dhamma has helped you to look at this fantasy that you've been fostering in your mind, this thing called the self. And you've begun to realize that all this effort that I have put in, all this abhisankara that you've been putting in to preserve the self, to sustain the self, to nourish the self, has always and forever will be meaningless. Honestly, now that you're beginning to understand the Dhamma, ladies and gentlemen, why have you started committing your life to the path, to the noble path? Is it because Guru Handra says so? Why have you committed whatever amount you can commit to the sasana, right, to this practice? Why have you made that commitment? Is it because the Swaminathan say so? Is it because the Buddha said so? Or is it because you're actually beginning to realize that what you were doing earlier was useless? That is conviction. Initially, you must have come to a sermon out of faith. Someone said, there's a good sermon, you should come along, listen to it. Initially. Then you came to the sermon. Came to the first sermon, came to the second sermon, came to the third sermon, began to slowly but gradually understand what was being said, and then you began to realize that this the sustaining of the self, the preserving the self, the nurturing the self, all this effort has been meaningless. How much value would you give to the last 20 years of your life? Let's just say you had to hire someone, okay? You're going to hire someone. This person that you're going to hire will do everything that you are supposed to do. All right? So, for instance, they'll do the chores at home, so you don't have to. And whatever they do, you can reap the benefits of it. So, for instance, if they practice the path to Nibbana, you are the one who gets to go to Nibbana. This is a hypothetical example, but I just want you to imagine this. Okay? If they cook, you get to eat. If they clean, then you get to be clean, right? So you don't even have to go take a shower. They'll do that. Once they take the shower, it's as if you had had the shower. Does that make sense? So they're the ones who are doing the actions, but you're the ones who are reaping the rewards of it. Okay? So this is a hypothetical example. Right. Now here's my question. So now, you don't have to attain Nibbana. They will go to the sermons, they will do the meditations, they will do the practicing, right? And then eventually they will do the hard work, but you will attain the Nibbana. All right? So the question is this. You're going to hire someone today, and for 20 years from here on, they're going to do the things that you did for the last 20 years. But you have to pay this person. All right? So you're going to hire this person. I'll give you two people. One person, they're going to live the last 20 years of your life. Then the other person is going to live the next 20 years of your life. Make sense? Two people. One's going to live the last 20 years of your life. This other person is going to live the next 20 years of your life. Who are you willing to pay? You have to pay them, though. You got to pay them. And of course, when you make payment, you have to think about how much the work that they're doing is of benefit to you, right? That's what you have to consider. If you hire someone and they do some work for you, you decide how much to pay depending on how much value they've added to your life. Yeah. So this person, these two people, one's going to live the last 20 years, the other's going to live the next 20 years of your life. Which one are you going to pay? How much would you pay? I'll give you, you have $10,000. You have $10,000. All right? And just to make it easier for you, 20 years, last 20 years, next 10 years. Not next 20 years, next 10 years. Okay? So half the time. Just to make it easier for you. So one person is going to live the last 20 years of your life. That's person A. Person B is going to live the next 10 years of your life. Not the next 20 years, only the next 10. At the end of that 10, you have to pay them again to live the next 10. Okay? And I give you $10,000. In what proportion are you going to pay these two people? They come up to you and say, we are happy to do this service for you, but you have to pay us. Right? I will live the last 20 years of your life. The next person says, but I can only live the next 10 years of your life. In what proportion are you going to split this 10,000 and pay these two people? Tell me. How much are you going to pay person 1 and how much are you going to pay person 2 or person B? How much would you give person A? Nothing. Nothing. How much would you pay person B? All of it. And then some. But person A? Nothing. Huh? Any last minute changes before I say the next thing to you? I want to have another go? Best of 3, maybe? How much are you willing to pay person A, who's willing to live 20 years of your previous life, versus person B, who's only going to live half that time, but the next 10 years? You're telling me that you wouldn't pay a cent to the person who's going to live the last 20 years, but you will give everything to the person who's going to live the next 10. Right? They'll do all the work. So you can stay at home, doing, you can sleep, whatever, you can do whatever you like. They will come and practice the path, because that's what you're going to be doing for the next 10 years. Versus the other person, they will live the last 20 years. They'll relive it. Right? So that last 20 years will be returned to you. But you can't do anything. You can't then go and practice the path. those 20 years that you lost. You'll just have to be at home asleep. Right? But if whatever money they earn will again be returned to you. Right? Whatever, if they build a house, that'll be yours. If they buy some land, that'll be yours. If they buy a car, that'll be yours. Just as the cars and the houses and the money that you've earned over the last 20 years is yours today, right? In the same way, they'll do that for you. They'll do the labor. And you're willing to pay how much? Nothing. So then here's the question. Question 1.2. What is the value add of the last 20 years of your life to your present day? Now, you can't tell me, Swaminathan, I learned English. That's why I get to understand the sermon today. I went to school, so I understood language. That's why I get to understand. You can't say that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about traveling the world. I'm talking about going to restaurants. I'm talking about going watching films, going listen to music, right? I'm talking about the things that you did to enjoy yourselves. How much value has that added to your life? When today you realize that the self is just a falsehood. Just think about this. You've been cheated your entire life. Your entire life you've been cheated. It's like you've always thought that there's another person at home. And so you cooked for them, you washed for them, you cleaned the house, right? They have a room. Imagine you have this mental illness whereby you think that there's another one at home, another person at home. So there's you and there's another person at home. So when you build a house, you always build 2 bedrooms. If you go rent somewhere, you have to rent 2 rooms, one for you and one for this other imaginary person. But you don't know this. You think they're there. So when you cook, you have to cook for them as well. Right? So you cook for them, you serve for them, and you go and leave it in their bedroom, and then you go back and later and you say, have you not eaten today either? Oh, what a waste. Don't be like this, eat. And you take the food, you throw it in the bin, but the next day you cook again. You have this imaginary friend in your life. You clean the room for them, you run the water, run a bath for them so that they can go and get a shower. Like baby Natasha, all over. Remember we talked about this a long time ago? Baby Natasha. See, now you begin to realize this self that on whose behalf you've been doing all these things. Pleasure, delight, going after all these sensual pleasures, all of that was completely and utterly meaningless. Would you not wish to regain those years, if you could? Wouldn't you? And actually do something meaningful with them. This is because of the Buddha Sasana. At least now you have come to that understanding and realization. So that you can save, no point crying after spilled milk, of course, but at least you can save what is left from here on. But 99.99% of all people in this world, they just go in a rat race. They have no idea that what they're doing is meaningless. Just think about how this world operates. Right? From time to time you'll get to hear about things that are going on in this world. If you ever get to hear the news, if you ever get to read a newspaper, right, you know what's going on out there. People, they call themselves, right, the presidents and prime ministers and ministers and people who rule the world, and then people who are trying to make money, right? People who are trying to work on developing technologies, right? People who are trying to find treatments for cancer and all sorts, right? They're really striving to do something, but none of them understand what the real problem is. None of them get the crux of the problem. So ultimately, all in vain. Yes, it's possible that one day they'll find a treatment for cancer. Maybe, right? I don't know, but let's just assume that they will. They'll find a treatment for cancer. Well, don't you think the next thing will come along after that? Then they'll say that was cancer A, now we have cancer type B. Like they had the COVID. Right? Every year there'll be a new variant. Right? So they'll say, okay, that original variant of cancer we found a treatment for, but now there's a new variant, and for that we have to start doing the research again. There's no end to this. There's only one end. That has to be the alternate end, where you realize that all this is done to sustain a falsehood. All this is done to nourish a false self. It's only when you understand that, when you realize that, do the things that you do in your life from there on begin to make sense. See, now you know that listening to this Dhamma sermon, coming along to the sermons, and practicing the path, dedicating part of your life to this. Just think about it, there are those among you who, maybe let's say a Sila Shravaka Mahatma, right, dedicates 2 days of his week to do the sasana. Only 2 because they've got other duties, responsibilities and obligations, as a result of which the other 5, they have to invest in that. Yeah? Don't you have regrets about that? The fact that you cannot commit yourself entirely. Think about why that is. Right? Yes, of course you can do the 2 days and you're happy about that. But the other 5 that you can't commit towards doing the Buddhasasana, why do you have regrets about that? Why are you not happy about that? Because you realize that 5 is meaningless. You realize that 5 is pointless. Because what you're going to be doing in that 5 is just, eating, sleeping, drinking. Meaningless. Fulfilling duties, responsibilities, obligations. Yes, I get that part. I'm not saying that we should, shrug our shoulders and just, ignore all our duties and responsibilities. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, what's the point? You got to do it, but pointless. Have to do it, but pointless. Your mother is poorly, right? You look after her, you tend to her, you give her her meds, you give her food, like wash her, clean her, do everything. Isn't she going to die anyway? How can he speak like that? Isn't she going to die anyway? Because one might question, Swaminatha, how ruthless you are, how heartless you are. Don't you have to stay at home and look after your mother? If I stayed at home, I could have looked after her, I could have washed her, I could have fed her, and waited until she died. Now I'm giving her the medicine of deathlessness. Which one do you think is more sublime? Which one do you think is more noble? Stay at home, clean her poo-poo, feed her, walk her to the kitchen, walk her around, right, when she is poorly and she can't get herself up on her 2 feet, and be by her side and wait until she pulls her last breath, right, and then shuts down entirely, and then claim that I have done all I can as a good son for her, when anyone else could have done that. You can hire a nanny to do that. Or come into the sasana, understand the Dhamma, and further my understanding, further my knowledge, further my wisdom in the Dhamma, and then using that, I help her to become deathless. So that she doesn't have to go through that again. Because doing it once doesn't mean having done it all. Doing it once is only doing it for this time. It's going to happen again and again and again and again. So, some people might ask a question, if I'm the only child in a family, should I go into this asana? People might have this question. If someone is the only child in the family, should they go into this asana, or should they stay at home and look after their parents? Don't ask me that question, because you're not going to be happy with the answer you get. Well, if you shouldn't be asking me, then definitely don't ask Guru Andhra. Here's what I think. We all have a duty towards our parents. And if you love them, help them fix themselves for good. Because they're going to die anyway. All you can do is delay death. Stop death and show me if you can. Stay at home and earn as much as you can. Don't even stop to eat or to sleep, right? Or to wash yourself. So don't stop to do anything. Just earn. Just keep on earning, keep on earning, keep on earning, and use all that money to treat your mother. Right? Build a palace for her, not 1 but 3. So that in the summer she can be in one palace, in the winter she can be in another palace, and in autumn she can be in another palace. Go and get her the best medical aid there is out there, the best treatments. Find the best consultants in the world and have them standing by her side. If ever she just coughs, like just a cough, right? A whole medical team will surround her. Stop her from dying and show me. And stop her from going through that again and show me. Then I'll be impressed. She's gonna die. Surprise, surprise. She's gonna die. All you can do is delay death. Death can only be delayed. Once you're born, death can only be delayed. It can't be stopped. Not in that manner. So, ask me. I dare you. Ask me. I'm the only child in the family, Swami Master. If I truly love my parents, what do you think I should do? Stay at home and look after them, or come to the sasana? Don't have me spell it out to you. Is it not obvious? I suggest you stay at home if you can stop her from dying. Then stay at home. Not just dying this time, but dying again. Now, yeah, and besides, perhaps you'll be at home and you look after her, right? And you can be the best child to your mother. Very loving and caring, right? You won't even let her lift a finger. You're there to do everything for her. But she dies and she's born again. Are you going to be there again? Can you guarantee that you'll be there again to look after her? No, right? So you have no guarantee that this service that you give her will continue. Maybe for the next 10 years you can look after her. After that, what's going to happen? She's going to go. Poof. Right? And then she's going to be somewhere else. She's going to be mother to somebody else. So what guarantee do you have that that daughter, that son will look after her like you? But here's my argument. I have good arguments, Sometimes I'm impressed by them myself. Here's what you can do, right? Engage her in meritorious acts. Share with her the sasana. Teach her how to be a mother not just to you, but to many people. Teach her how to be a mother to not just one person, 2 children, right? 3 children, not just her biological children, but to the human race. Here's what will happen then. Even if she dies, and if she's born again as a human being, because she has given to many, she will get from many. But if she only gives to you as her child, she better hope that when she's born again, you will be there to repay those debts. Do you get the logic? If you get her to think more broadly and stop this narrow-minded thinking about my child and I have to look after him. My child, so I have to look after her. I have to protect my child. This self-based thinking, very selfish thinking really. That's why it's called selfish thinking. Selfish thinking. This selfish thinking, you're only doing yourself disservice. If you give to one, you'll get from one. Give to many, you get from many. One of the other things this Srila Shravika Mahatmya does, at a Noble Hearts program, we have these little bhattas, little kids, that they've organized themselves there, and they have the teachers who go there and teach them, right? So we give them a good education. But there is also this thing called a mother role. So one of the Srila Shravika Mahatmyas or Anagarika Mahatmyas will go there and be a mother to them. Not one, sometimes several. Go and be a mother to them. So that involves everything. Maybe sometimes washing their clothes and making their beds and talking to them and seeing that they're okay. Patting their heads and just having a general conversation with them. Puta, how are you doing today? What's up? Is everything okay with you? So that they feel that they don't have their mother around with them. They don't feel that way. So in fact, it's called the mother role. That's the name that they've come up with, mother role. So this is one of the duties that she has. Being a mother, not to one child, not to 2, not to 3, to all of them. But before the sasana happened to your life, how many were you a mother to? And who appreciated you for that? Mother's Day, you got a card. Maybe Sometimes, maybe a bouquet of flowers, maybe a box of chocolates. That's what you got on Mother's Day. But for being a mother, do you think the Mahasangha will ever appreciate you just for being a mother? We'll appreciate you when you give up your child to the sasana. That we'll appreciate, because then a mother stops being selfish and becomes selfless. Right? Without thinking about oneself, they think about others. I often wonder, when we have these ordination ceremonies at the monastery, excuse me, sometimes, you see mothers, cry and they weep. It's very natural, because sometimes it's only the child who's listened to the sermons, not the mother. And even if the mother does, right, it takes a long time for a mother to let go of that I am the mother, she's the child, he's the child feeling. Okay, it takes a long time for that to happen. Because it's ingrained in the mind, right? So for that kleshas, those defilements to be uprooted, it takes a lot of practice. Mothers cry because they feel they're giving their children to the sasana. In that sentence, I'm not trying to emphasize the word there. I'm emphasizing the word to. When the mother's preparing her child to go to Australia, to go to UK, go to Canada, right? The mother doesn't feel the same grief. Because here's what she thinks then. I'm giving Australia to my son. That's what she thinks. When she sends the child to have a good education somewhere, right? I'm giving Yale University to my child. I'm giving Harvard to my child. But when it comes to the sasana, I'm giving my child to the sasana. That's where the problem is. This is wrong. You can't give anything to the sasana, you give the sasana to them. So mothers here, who gave up your children to the sasana, please come to your senses. You never gave up your child to the sasana, you gave the sasana to your child. That's what happened. Now when you think about it in those terms, you're not losing out. Your children are not losing out. They're gaining what they have and even more. That is what is truly happening. So, when you realize, I'm giving my child whatever he wants, the thing he deserves, then you don't feel like crying, you don't feel like weeping, you don't feel like losing out, you feel like you've got much more than what you had. Do you agree? But when you feel that you are giving your child up, remember, this happens when you get married. You know this. Go back take a walk down memory lane. Right, that day when you got onto the porua, right? Father and mother, they came up to you, right? Holding your hand, gives your hand to the boy, and then pouring that water over your fingers, right? Do you remember seeing their faces? What was in their faces? Grief, tears of sorrow, because what they felt was they are giving up their child, right? This child that they doted on, like the apple of their eye, right? Looked after them, cared for them, and loved them. Now I'm giving up my child to somebody else. They're going to take my child and go away. So when the mother feels that way, now she's feeling like, I'm giving my child away. That's why that day the mother cried. So why does the mother cry when she gives the child to the sasana? She feels the same way. I'm giving my child up to the sasana. That is not true. It's fine, when giving up your child to another man, yes, you're giving up. Probably never going to get back again. At least alive. Never going to get them back again. But where the sasana is concerned, you're not giving your child up to the sasana, you're giving the sasana to your child. I want all parents to think that way, because this is not just fooling yourself to think this way. This is the truth. My mother gave the sasana to me. She didn't give me up to the sasana. She gave me the freedom to choose real happiness. That is what she gave me. She gave me the path to ultimate bliss. That is what she gave me. She didn't give me up. She gave me something. And I want all mothers to understand this. So I was making a point earlier. See, this Sri Shavika Mahatmya, she has committed herself as a mother to many young children. And I encourage you to do the same. Help your mothers to become a mother to as many people as possible. Not just to you, because if they're just a mother to you, then they better hope that even in the next birth they're going to have you to look after them. Because if it's only you they've given. Remember the Buddha and the sweet cake? How he had no claim to it. That lady who came and dropped the sweet cake in the Buddha's alms bowl, she came back to retrieve it, didn't she? Why was that? Then you'll understand my point here. That the Buddha looked in his infinite wisdom and realized this lady I'd never given anything to. So I am not due to receive anything from her. Now think about having understood that. Reflect on what I've just explained to you. If your mother only thinks about you, right? All she cares about is you, your well-being, your health, your wealth, your goodness. Whatever happens to you is all she cares about. Has no care in the world about other children. If she's so focused on you, so devoted to you, so dedicated to you, you as a child must be more considerate about that. You must think that what harm she's doing to herself. You're on the path to Nibbana, right? So chances are you're not going to come back again as a human being. And even if you do, maybe into very different circumstances. But whereas she's just concerned about you. She can't give you up. She wants you to be with her, right? She's just so focused on you. Are you well? Are you happy? Right? There are other children dying in this world. She doesn't care a bit. There are other people suffering in this world. She doesn't care. Not her concern, because they're not her children. I'm giving you good advice, ladies and gentlemen. If you really love your parents, and I'm sure you do, help them think about all children as their children, not just you. Because if they only do for you, then you had better be there to look after her in the next birth as well. Because you only get what you've given. But look at this Srila Sravika Mahatmya now. She's a mother to many. She's a mother to all. In fact, she's creating young children who will go on to be mothers and fathers to others. It's a chain reaction. And she's the catalyst. So help your parents in that way. Help them to come out of this self-based thinking. Help them with that. If you truly love them, and I know you do, and you know how much they've done for you, it's now time for them to stop thinking about just you and start thinking more compassionately. Metta, karuna, mudita, upeksha. Right? It is said that parents only have that towards their children, to that degree. Right? But the Aramaha Sangha, anyone who has understood the Dhamma, right, wherever they are, to that degree, they have these four. The four Brahmic abodes they're called. Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and Upekkha. They have it towards all sentient beings. They don't feel that only my child is my child. Everyone's a child. So then you give to all. When you give to all, who do you get from? All. So for any hope that in your next birth, the mother who has been so attentive to you, loved you and has devoted her life to you, for any hope that she will be fine and well in her next birth, help her to stop focusing on you as her child and start thinking about other children as well. Think about all people as her own children. These are the words of advice I give to my mother. I tell her, Amma, you don't need to worry about me anymore. I'm fine. but I need you to be a mother to all. In the same way that you were able to love me and be compassionate towards me and kind to me and generous to me, I want you to extend that to all. It's going to be difficult, yes, I understand, because it will be, right? Because for that to happen naturally, you need to understand the Dhamma. When you realize that there's no such thing as my children and another woman's children, right? Until then, you feel that way. This is again self-based thinking. To come out of this way of thinking, you have to understand the Dhamma. And then you realize all there are minds and bodies. Conventionally, we give them names. And if a mind is suffering, a mind is suffering. It matters not whether that is my mind or somebody else's mind, right? Or whether it is my son or somebody else's son. But for you to be able to think in that way, you have to come out of that self-based thinking. So that's why help them. Honestly, if you love your parents, help them to understand at least a little bit of the Dhamma, so that they're not so focused on just you alone. You know that their fate, if they continue to be that way, right? They're going to die and they're going to come back looking for you. People will always come back to attend to unfinished business. They always keep coming back. If you have left something unfinished, you will come back to do it. That is why samsara works in that way. In samsara, we never achieve happiness, right? So you keep coming back to do what? Try and achieve happiness. That's why you keep coming back. That's why an arahat doesn't come back. Because they have achieved happiness. It's finished, done. So you don't come back, you only come back for unfinished business. But once the business is finished, that's it, you don't come back again. That is why samsara works in the way it does. So why were you born in this birth? Because you had unfinished business from last time. Right? Maybe you were human and maybe you lived to 100 years. 100 years you strived for happiness. You did this, that and the other. You did everything you've done in this birth as well. You ate, you went places, you were with friends, you were with family, right? You went on trips, you went on holidays, right? You did the things that you like to do, enjoy, have fun, parties, the lot. And guess what? You've come back again. What's the blooming point? You've come back again. Just look at yourselves. I speak on my behalf as well, okay, when I say this. These words run through my mind before they are uttered as words to you. So this is advice for me as much as it is advice for you. I say this just in case you feel that I'm trying to talk you down. It's not that. We love the sinner, just not the sin. Just look at yourselves. Unfinished business. That's why you're back. Why do you keep going back to work? Unfinished business. So finish your business this time round at least. For that you need to understand what your business is. What is your business? You got to understand that first. What is my business? Is it making money? Those who make money will come back to keep on making more money. Trust me. It's like a game of snake and ladders. Like, even if you climb up to square number 99, if you hit a snake there, you're going to come back all the way and start from square one. Making money is not the business you're here for, but people think that is what they're here for, to make money. Ask some people what they want to achieve in their lives. I want to become the richest man alive. Get my name on the Forbes magazine. The Forbes list of richest people. You know, these are some of the dreams that people have. I want to be the person who has the biggest house. I want to be the person who has the biggest private jet. I want to be the person who has the most luxurious car. All unfinished business. Because how can there ever be a biggest house? A biggest house can only be in this moment. In the next moment, there's one bigger than that. So they have to come back for that. How can there ever be a richest man? That's why when they publish these lists, they say the richest man in 2023. Hmm? The richest man in 2023. Do they have a list of arahants in 2023? Why? What happens to the arahant in 2024 then? Goes back to become Pruthakjana? No. Once an arahant, always an arahant. But once the richest man alive, you can't complete that sentence. Only that once. Only that once. What about if you want to be the most educated person? I want to be the most educated person. You know how science is, you know how knowledge is, right? Every time people keep on exploring, right? Perhaps by now they can see the end of the Milky Way, right? But in 10 years' time, they'll say, we can see the next galaxy. So everything there's in the next galaxy, you have to learn now. Because someone else will do before you do. And then they'll be the most educated person. So if you want to keep your book in the Guinness World Records, you have to keep coming back. Because if you pump something up, you got to maintain it. Only things that settle down are at rest. Anything that is pumped up, it is not at rest. You got to keep it there. See, this, I have to keep it up here. Because there's energy in here. It's called potential energy. There's energy contained within this object. So therefore I have to keep supplying that. I have to keep it here, I have to maintain it here. But if you put it down, this is, say, imagine this is reference, right? So this is 0, 0 level. You put it down, it's down. You don't have to maintain it. So if you've achieved anything in your life by pumping yourself up, if you want to climb the tallest ladder, just be assured that tomorrow there'll be one taller than that. What is the longest wall in the world? For now. For now. There's always this race to build great skyscrapers, right? Right? Every year they come up with another one. For a short period of time, you can claim to have the tallest skyscraper. And countries will often fight for this, for that prestige, for that honor. In our country, we have the tallest building, the tallest man-made structure. Every year there will be a fight for it. And the other day, someone showed me the tallest statues ever built. It's something like this. Now these figures will not be accurate because I only go by the faint memory that I have. So this is the timeline. Okay. So initially they built a statue of the Buddha. That was the tallest at the time. Next year they built a statue of Jesus Christ. Now you can see why I'm laughing. Next year they built another statue of the Buddha. What do you think happened after that? Although you can't see from back there, this is 1/100th of an inch taller than the other one. It is the tallest now. Buddha, Jesus, Buddha, Jesus. Next up, Buddha. Can you see the unsaid tale? Unspoken. There's an unspoken tale that's running behind all this. Who's better? Surely Jesus is better, right? No. Buddha. You just, when you get home, just do some, Google search or something, and you'll see what I'm saying, right? Over the last several years, right? Every time, like mostly these figures are religious figures. Religious figures. Which one's bigger? See how people understand virtue? How people think about big? Right? If the statue is big, then the Buddha is big. If the statue is big, then Jesus is big. I mean, fortunately, they don't have figures of Allah. If they were, imagine that. If in Islam also they had allowed to create these statues, right? Because in that faith they don't make statues. But if they did, right, there'll be another contender here. Is this what religion is for? I ask you. Why does this have to be bigger than the other one? Why does the Buddha's statue have to be bigger than Jesus' statue? If the two of them were here right now, what do you think they would say? If Buddha and Jesus were here. Oh, we have another one. Krishna. Shiva. Every biggest statue in the world goes into the Guinness World Records. Do you think that's what they came into this world for? Do you think that's what Buddha's message was? This is a very lay attitude, is it not? This is a very lay attitude, which none of you have now. Although you live a lay lifestyle, you are a monk by attitude. This is a very lay attitude. The bigger, the better. So, this is a competition. That's what I see. My personal interpretation of this is a competition. That's why it's always religious figures. I mean, it's good. I've got nothing against that, right? If they can make a big Buddha statue, then fair enough. You can see it from the moon, perhaps in a few days' time. Next time, you can go to the moon, and then from there you can offer your flowers in that direction. But the Buddha that I know is not one who would have condoned this kind of behavior. I think he would have said, create me in the hearts and minds of others, because he said, Yo dhammam passati so mam passati. One who has seen the Dhamma has seen me. It is not in looking at a big statue you've seen me, it's by seeing the Dhamma you've seen me. This attitude you'll see everywhere. Like, how big should the pagoda be? How big do you think we should make our pagoda? There's one being constructed right now. Here's what we should do, right? We should go around the country and find out how big the biggest one is. And then make it just a little bit bigger than that. That's the way to stand out, isn't it? If you had a bell tower, it should be the tallest one. Have a Dhamma hall? Now we are making some plans to prepare a Dhamma hall because there's not enough room for everyone. So how big should the Dhamma hall be? As big, bigger than the biggest Dhamma hall, or big enough? Big enough. That's how big should be. Big enough. How big should your house be? Big enough. Enough for what? Enough for what it's there for. Now, if this was built so that actually astronauts could actually worship the statues from where they were, then fair enough, because then it's big enough for them. That's what it's there for. Like the Hajj, for instance, right? Muslims, when they worship, right, they have to turn in that direction, and then that's the way they make their worship. So if they could see the Hajj from wherever they are, that's all the better. Now, if that were the case, then it has to be big enough so that people could see it from wherever they are. But what's the point? What's going on here? I think there's something else going on here. And that's my personal interpretation. But what I'm saying is, none of us should be like that. We need to have a very different attitude. Big should only be big enough. Your houses should only be big enough. Big enough so that, well, now as monks, as those who have committed ourselves to the practice of the path, right, our house, our shelter should be big enough so that when it rains, right, the rainwater doesn't wet our knees after we sit down for meditation. That's big enough. When the sun is shining bright, it doesn't fall on our body, the sun rays, and heat the body up. When it doesn't scorch us, right? That's big enough. If the rain doesn't wet you, that's big enough. How big should your meal be? How many courses? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, where's the limit? You've seen those large banquets? You go in there and you need a telescope to see what's on the other end of the table. How big should the dining table be? Big enough. But there's a good question to ask. How much is enough? If you ask the mind has no limits. Because the mind it has limitless potential, right? The mind has no limits to how much it wants, because wanting is limitless. Needs are limited. Because needs are always there to fill a void. A want is a void that the mind creates. So when you're hungry, you just need enough to fill your stomach. Actually, not fill it. 1/3 of it is enough. When you don't feel hunger and you've taken enough food to sustain your body, that's enough. So every need, just have a think about it. Every need, there's a limit. Every need, there's a limit. How many clothes do you need? Versus how many clothes do you want? Which one has a limit? The need or the want? The need has a limit, but the want has no limit. How many alms bowls do you need? Versus how many alms bowls do you want? See? How many bedrooms do you need versus how many bedrooms do you want? So now go back to your lay lives and see when you built your house, right? How big did you build it? Was it as big as it needed to be or as big as you wanted it to be? Think about it. How many washrooms do you need? Can you go to 2 at once? No. You can only go to 1 at once. So how many washrooms do you need? 1. But how many do you want? Well, for that, you have to go find out how many other people have in their homes. You have to read the magazines and see what the latest trends are. Right? Is it 1 bathroom per room? Is it 1 bathroom per person at home? Is it 1 bathroom per floor? You got to study now. You got to go and find out how many bathrooms is the right number. But every time it will keep changing, of course. There'll be some who will hold the title of having the biggest home in the world, and they'll be very proud of that. But because it's an unfinished business, guess where they're going to go after they're dead? They're going to come back. Why? To build the biggest home. They'll keep coming back for unfinished business. That's why I urge you folks, when you die, don't have any unfinished business. This is one of the best pieces of advice I can give you. Don't die with unfinished business. If you have unfinished business, don't die. If you're going to die, ensure that you're finished, your business is done. Otherwise, you will come back. If you have a relationship with someone, whatever that relationship might be, mother-child relationship, father-daughter relationship, husband-wife relationship, best friends relationship. I don't mean noble friends. I'm talking about best friends. Best friend relationship. Enemy relationships. Love is as bad as hate, right? The same thing goes. All these relationships, you'll always keep coming back to finish that unfinished business. That's why it's all these people, they keep coming back. People want to ask, why do people, keep coming back? People keep coming back to finish unfinished business. So who are those who don't come back? Those whose finished business is done. They have no more business to do. Because if you have no business in this world, the world doesn't keep you. It expels you. Because you are of no relevance to this world. Your existence to this world is not productive. If you're in this world, folks, you have to produce something that is worldly. That's the deal. It's like a company, right? To be hired and to remain hired, right? To remain an employee of a business, you have to be productive to that company, shouldn't you? So otherwise they're made redundant. You know the term. They're given a redundancy package and then they're let go. Redundant. An arahant doesn't produce anything to this world. They don't produce anything. All they do is consume what has already been produced. How lazy. They just eat. They don't produce anything. They're only consumers. They're not producers. So actually an arahant is the best consumer. If you ask me. We are consumer come producer. So if you're a producer, then the world loves you because they want people to produce. Production is the name of the game. You've got to keep producing. So if you're here, you've got to keep producing. And if you want to keep producing, you can come back here. Become an arahant so that you no longer produce, you only consume. You have no place here. Like any good company would let someone off if all they do is consume and not produce. Right? The day where you stop producing and all you do is consume, out. We have no need for you again. This production is jati. Separation. See, how was this produced? Just think about it. Nothing in this world can be produced if not for jati. Because jati is separation. See, there was matter in this world, right? Someone combined that matter and produced this. In fact, they separated a mass of matter. They separated it into a certain shape and molded it into a certain shape. And you got this. This was produced. So, jati. Separation. Becoming. This has now become because of jati. Look at the room, scan the room. Everything in here is a product of jati. Everything on you is a product of jati. Your teeth, product of jati. This is all separation. Because all there is just energy. Pure energy. That pure energy, when it's put together in a certain configuration, now you have it in separate shapes and forms. Through raga, dvesha and moha, desire, aversion and delusion, you keep them in that shape. These are the bonds. That's why they call them the bonds, the triple bond. Remember the bonds of desire, the bonds of aversion and the bonds of delusion? We spoke about this in the past. These are the bonds. These bonds keep these things in that shape, in that order, in that configuration. That's why once the bonds are released, energy is just released. So your karmic energy is just energy that is bound by raga, dvesha and moha. Once you become an arahant, this is your karmic energy. Right? This is the same thing that Guru Handra explains as karma jara, right? The karmic strands. Right? These are your karmic energy. This is also energy. But the difference between energy out there and the energy in here, this is all bound together. This is like a balloon, right? Through raga, desha and moha. This energy is held together. So it cannot release. So because it's held together, this is like a funnel. So therefore, energy in here is only going to come out this way. And so it comes to you. So by you, I mean the force that is holding these bonds together is the recipient of the energy that is within this. So that is this karmic energy. But this is also energy. But this energy is the same energy in here, except it's in this form and held together by raga, desha and moha. So let go of these bonds. Let go of raga, let go of desha and let go of moha. And then this balloon or this shape can no longer sustain, and therefore what happens to this energy? It's just released. Otherwise one would ask the question, right? So if an arahant, why when an arahant dies, doesn't an arahant chitta come back into being? Now it's a valid question to ask, isn't it? Because if an arahant chitta is just a chitta that has no karma in it, it doesn't do karma, no ignorance, no attachment, fine, right? So say someone becomes an arahant at the age of 20, right? They die at 80. So 60 years worth of time is just karmic energy, isn't it? This is karmic energy. So karmic energy coming into fruition. What is born? Arahat chittas are born. So why then, if the bhava hasn't been expired or consumed entirely, so bhava meaning one lot of this, right? So this is a manusya bhava, human bhava, right? If one lot of this has not been expired, then how come when that arahat chitta in this human form has arisen and passed away, and the human body has now broken down, why does that arahat chitta not come back into being? Because if there's still karmic energy left. The answer is, when there is no longer raga, desha and moha, there is nothing left to keep this together. It's like a bouquet of flowers and the string that you use to tie it and hold it together. So once you cut the string, then as those flowers fall apart and there's no longer a bouquet, right? In the same way, this energy can only be kept trapped in here for as long as raga, desha and moha are there. This raga, desha and moha, it's like passing a baton from one chitta to the next chitta. It just keeps passing the baton. So in every chitta, there is raga, desha and moha. Right? There's a bond here that keeps this energy in this form. And the energy that you need to put in here, the first bout of energy comes with the pratisandhi. That is the point at which bhava happens. Right? So for instance, say you're a deva. Okay? So a few chittas pass, you're a deva, and now it's time to be born as a human. So here's what we call a chuti parisandhi moment. Right? In this moment, this is a chuti and a parisandhi moment. Right? So you've gone from deva to human. There's an amount of raga, desha and moha in each of these chittas. Otherwise, this rebirth wouldn't happen, clearly. The raga, desha and moha that is in this chitta, or the mind base, if you like, right? So that could be the dormant raga, desha, moha. These are the bonds that will take an amount of this energy and put a string around it. The string is what we call raga, desha, moha. That will be there until the end of this iteration, right? So this existence now as a human, this will continue, right? And it will keep on feeding from this collection. What happens is, these strings are only tied every time a parisandhi happens. Chuti parisandhi. So therefore, when one becomes an arahant, at that point the string still remains, but a new one is not going to be tied to this. Because for that you need bhava, which is this force of becoming. Becoming a deva, becoming a human, becoming an animal. That is what this bhava is all about, becoming. In other words, accumulating the energy, the karmic energy required to bring you that form of existence. So at one point, this becomes an arahant, right? So this is the human form, and at one point becomes an arahant, right? So let's say this is the arahant. Right, so we're going this way. Now, what has happened is, at this point, these bonds, right? So this string is kept held together by raga, dvesha, and moha, right? Through their practice here. So at the point somewhere here, they become a sotapanna, and they continue their practice, right? These bonds, they were shattered. I imagine they were shackles, right? They're shattered, right? And at that point, the string still remains, but you can't tie another string because there's no raga, desha, and moha. The clips, if you like, they cannot be used to tie another bout of energy so that it brings another form of existence. So therefore, at the point of becoming an arahant, which is this point here, all of raga, desha, moha are dispelled, leaving just this string. But at the point this body breaks down, now because there is no longer a force that is required to compound an amount of this energy into another package, if you like, because this force is not there, now the string can no longer sustain itself. Therefore, the energy is all released as pure energy. I don't know why I started talking about that, but there you go. Yeah. Yes. Of course. So wherever there is raga, dvesha, and moha, wherever these bonds exist, right? You're not only consuming. That's why I say we are not only consumers, but we're also producers. So as we consume, we also produce. So this production goes back into filling that. And so whenever there's a chuti pratisandhi, which is the change of one bhava to another. So a deva going into a human going into a deva, and so on. So if you are a human and you die and you're born a human again, chances are that is not a change of bhava, right? Chances are. There are the odd chances where it can also happen, but generally speaking, the bhava hasn't changed yet. But when it does happen, right? When the change of bhava does happen, now what happens is this energy, again, it's like, imagine if you had a balloon or a shopping bag, right? You use a shopping bag and you just swing it and you capture an amount of air, and then you keep it together and you hold it. Okay, so you tie it with a string, but that string has to be held together. If you let go of the string, then the air just releases into the atmosphere. Okay, so it's a similar concept here. At the point of chuti pratisandhi, what happens is, it's like you're taking this bag, collecting an amount of air into that bag, right? And then by using a string, you're tying it. You tie it and then you hold it. So this holding or this clinging is done through raga, desha, and moha. Once you continue with your practice, at the point where you become an arahant, you let go of this, right? But the string will remain. What will not happen is, after the body breaks down and the mind can no longer be sustained. So for now for the mind to come into being, you need another rupa, because the mind is always dependent on a rupa. Without a rupa, you can't have a thought, because the thought's object is the rupa, right? So it needs a rupa. So, but because another rupa doesn't come into being, and why does it not come into being? Because now there is no force to collect an amount of air again. In this metaphor, there's no force to collect an amount of air again. But what's happened is this energy that kept it together no longer exists. The string is there until the body remains, and when the body has been broken down, the string also is released, and at that point, all the energy that's within here is dispersed into the atmosphere, into pure energy. Now, something similar happens when one becomes a sotapanna. When one becomes a sotapanna, there will still be karmic energy. Right? So before becoming a sotapanna, there's karmic energy that can give you birth in the 4 great hells. Right? So the point at which you become a sotapanna, it's like, imagine you are holding on to this string with say you had 3 hands. Of course, I can't show this to you, but let's just say there's a third hand, okay? Or let's say there are 4 hands. Now you have Sotapanna, Sakruddhagami, the third is Anagami, and the fourth is Arahant. Okay, makes sense? So 4 hands. When you practice the path, it's like you let go 1 finger at a time. This is your practice. But if you stop your practice and you start engaging again in unmeritorious deeds or ayoniso manasikara, you clench those fingers back again. Every time you continue your practice and you do yoniso manasikara, it's like letting go of this. But the hand is still there until all 5 have been released. At that point, this hand is no longer required. Now you have become a Sotapanna. Now the hold on this balloon is not strong enough to keep some of the strong karmas in there. So what happens? They leak out. Karmas like what? That bring you rebirth in the 4 great hells. It's not strong enough now to keep those karmas contained within this. In the simile here, the air in that balloon. So let's say the hot air, it's hot air or just very, very active, some kind of active air, that air leaks out. But the rest remains. And then you start the practice as a Sakruddhagami, because that's the next step. That's the next hand. So whenever you keep on practicing, right, you let go 1 finger at a time. But if you stop practicing and then go back into living this lay attitude, ayoniso manasikara, again these fingers clench back again. But you won't go back to being a pruthakjana. That state has been completely eradicated. But you can keep going up and down in the stage that you're practicing. That's why if you stop your practice, or if you're not diligent with your practice, you may not progress from this stage for a long time. Remember last week I talked about dusting a piece of cloth and wiping the dust. Right? Every time you do an ayoniso manasikara, an act with ayoniso manasikara, you are bending, you are clenching these fingers again. And every time you do a yoniso manasikara, you are letting go, you're releasing these fingers. But only at the point you've released all 5 can this hand now come off. And at that point you become an anagami. So now the anagami practice is required. Actually you can think of 3, because Sotapanna takes you to Sakruddhagami, Sakruddhagami takes you to Anagami, and Anagami takes you to the Arahant, right? So once you've completed so the Arahant is the 4th one, right? Arahat, path. This is practicing the path. Releasing these fingers. So an Anagami person also can take, a long amount of time before they become an Arahant, because it just depends on how diligently they practice. If they practice all the time, always mindful and mindfully aware, right, then these fingers are one at a time, they're being released. But if they're not diligent in their practice, if they're not mindful, right, if they're not practicing the path, not taking the Dhamma sermons, they're not being practicing, they're doing their meditation and so on, or their reflection, their contemplation, then these fingers will come back again and hold a strong hold. But you're not going to go back to being a Sakruddhagami. That won't happen. Because once let go. But at the point you become an Anagami person, right, now all you have is the Arahat path to practice, right? Therefore, a lot of the energy that's in this balloon will have released, because the hold is not strong enough to keep any karma that will bring you rebirth in the karmic plane, in the form plane, or the rupa plane. So the rupa plane, the kama-vachara worlds, the sensual world. There's not enough karmic energy, or the karmic energy to bring you rebirth in the sensual plane is just too strong now to be held together by the hold that remains on the balloon of one who has become an anagami person. That's why that energy has been released now. So there's no more energy in there to bring you rebirth in the sensual plane again. Therefore now rebirth can only happen in the form plane and the formless plane. The Rupa-vachara worlds and the Arupa-vachara worlds. That's the way it works. So once you become an Arahant, then finally the Arahant path is practiced, right? And then at one point, the last hand is also released. So what happens then? Now, this I said there was a string here, right? So because this shape took place at the point of the human being born as a human being, whatever energy is there will remain there. But now there is no longer a hand to catch another amount of energy, another amount of air. So therefore, another karma, another bhava doesn't happen. Now that energy has been released into what you call pure energy, and there is not a force now that remains to capture, to recapture pure energy back into bhava. Actually, what bhava is, after all, is the shaping or the configuration of pure energy into various forms. That is what bhava actually means. If someone becomes an arahant, the karmic energy that was captured at the point that bhava happened last time. Because remember, until they become an arahant, this is being fed, right? They're not just consumers; they're also producers, right? So as much as energy is drawn out, energy is put back in there. But that energy doesn't go into the pure energy. It keeps going back into this balloon. This is the what we call the karma kosha. It's a capturing of energy. This is separation after all. Can't you see separation here? This is everything, and this separation. It's like a set. Like a Venn diagram. You have a set here, right? This is capturing of energy that belongs to everything, really. But once bhava stops happening, at that point, like I said, there is no more raga desha moha. Because there's no more raga desha moha, this energy can no longer be channeled back into this balloon. Okay, this energy that is consumed, but this energy can no longer be channeled back into that balloon. But the energy that was there at the beginning keeps on feeding out, because now it's just air keeps flowing out of the balloon. Now it's like if you had a balloon and you were trying to blow it up by putting it into a pump. For as long as it's connected to the pump, right, and you keep pumping on the thing, the lever, the air fills the balloon. But if at any point it comes off, now there's only one thing that's going to happen. Air is not going to go in now. Air is just going to keep coming out of the balloon, right? That's once you stop creating bhava. That's at the point you become an arahant. Yeah, that's the point you become an arahant. But the air that's already in there, that energy is just looking to be freed, because that energy actually belongs to pure energy. This is an artificial capturing of energy. So this energy will keep on releasing itself until the body remains, because the body has a connection with the mind, and the mind is housed in this body, and therefore these two things work together. For as long as the body is there, the mind will continue to draw on this energy. So at the point the body breaks down, then there is no longer this string that has kept the air releasing in that direction. So therefore what happens is all the air in that very moment, let's say you had say 1,000 units, okay, 1,000 units of karma. At the point of becoming an arahant, you had consumed 300. Say it's a young arahant, okay? You still have 700 units of karma left, right? So if you lived on as a human being, you can live on for as long as you have this 700 units of karma in there. But you're not producing any new karma. But at the point the body breaks, therefore the mind can no longer be associated with this body. At that point, this 700 units of energy is released into pure energy. That's what happens. And until they become an arahant, when they consume this 300, another 300 was pumped back into this balloon. And I'm giving you a very simple, a simplified picture of this, because in fact in this balloon you can have other balloons as well, various others, but let's not go there because it just complicates the analogy. Right? So this is probably Greek to some, but I don't know why I explained all that. If it made sense to you, then good. If it didn't make sense to you, then even better. The long and short of this is, whenever we do things for ourselves, that was what I started talking about this morning. Whenever you do things for yourself, right, this will keep on happening. Because this is all self-based. Raga, Desha, Moha, which are the bonds that keep this together, are all self-based. Because Raga, Desha and Moha have everything to do with self-sustenance. What is Raga? Associating with the things that I like. What is Desha? Dissociating myself from the things that I don't like. What is Moha? Comparing myself with the things I like and the things I don't like, or others. Right? This is comparison. So all, Raga, Desha and Moha, all three of them are based in this sense of self. For as long as the self remains, this will keep on happening. Once you become an Arahant, once you become a Sotapanna at the very least, you begin to understand that this is what's going on here. You are convinced of this, and you, out of conviction, you understand, not just understanding a logic, but this becomes your default state. Then you realize this is what's going on here. So this self is not really a self; it's just a sense of self. This is actually just what the Buddha called dukkha or suffering, right? And for as long as this remains, all I'm doing is really punishing myself. I'm not rewarding myself. I'm just creating my own suffering. So what you treasured now becomes your greatest source of misery. Because what you used to treasure was the self. You wanted to look good, you wanted to enjoy yourself, you wanted to experience things, right? And just keep yourself happy, right? That's what we've done all our lives, try and keep ourselves happy. But once you realize that this self that I thought was something to be kept happy is really my source of misery. This is the punishment. Right? This is the danger, this is the evil, this is the demon. Once you realize that, now you just want to expel the demon, not keep it and feed it. For that once that realization happens, now you don't need my convincing to practice. Your practice will be self-inspired. Not that self, but the chitta that has understood this will be inspired to carry on with the practice. That is what we need to do. We'll continue the conversation again maybe next week. So let's transfer the merits and bring today's sermon to a close. Let us all take a moment then to transfer the merits that we have all acquired, reminding ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of the Lord Buddha's teaching, and with immense gratitude towards the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas who have since time immemorial protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down through the generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits to all members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all of the chapters, who dedicated their lives to the noble path and have committed themselves towards the betterment of all sentient beings. Let us not forget that amongst them are the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries, who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits to all of them. Let us also transfer these merits to my teacher, Guru Swami Nuhanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery and the Anagarika and Anagarika communities attached to the monastery. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to express our gratitude to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these talks, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. And by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us all transfer these merits we have acquired to all our devotees and friends of the monastery, who for the sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes everyone from those of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, to those who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, arms, robes and medicines, as well as those who continue to extend their well-wishes and their know-how. May by the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our friends, our acquaintances, employees and employees, and our teachers, as well as those who would have helped us, supported us, assisted us in any way, shape or form. And by the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcoming obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to the Devas and Brahmas, spirits and demons, and primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who are committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddhasasana. Let us transfer these merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. And by the power of these merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to all those who would have lost their lives in in the wars, be they friend or foe, as well as those who sacrifice their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. This includes members of the armed forces as well as the police force. May they all rejoice in these merits. Let us also transfer these merits to those who would have lost their lives to natural disasters such as the tsunamis and earthquakes, landslides, fires, blizzards, as well as the pandemics, reminding ourselves that in this infinitely long journey of samsara, they will all have been mothers and fathers to us, brothers and sisters to us, friends and acquaintances to us, and people who would have sacrificed their lives for us. With an abundance amount of compassion, loving kindness, and gratitude to all of them, let us transfer all these merits we have acquired to all of them. May, by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may by the power and blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of arahants on this blessed land. And may you and I, and everyone who's helped make this program a success, become an Arahatun Vahanse, an Arahatharanin Vahanse in this very life itself, and in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. And the members of the Mahasangha will transfer the blessings to you. Raga ginnen midatnva Dvesha ginnen midatnva Moha ginnen midatnva Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetnva Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetnva Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satnvayo Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetnva Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetnva Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetnva Raga gini niveva Dvesha gini niveva Moha gini niveva Nivan sapa labeva Nivan sapa labeva Nivan sapa labeva Tunrange susi ananta mahaguna belen Sila loka sila satyoma Nibbana paramasukhen Sukitaravetva Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.